old buddy Barrett Brooks from NBC's Eagles pre- and post-game live. They were fired up after that game last night. But BB is an old offensive lineman. And that's why when I was thinking about the show last night, I said, I need someone to really get into this offensive line issue. Who better to reach out to than a former offensive lineman, Barrett Brooks, and he joins us now on the Sports Bash Live on 97.3 ESPN. I don't even know where to start, BB. I mean, that offensive line, would you say, is it being overblown, or as a former offensive lineman, would you concur that they were rotten yesterday?
They were absolutely rotten, but, I mean, you really can't blame it on the guys that were in there. The right side didn't have any business being in there in the first place. In fact, I'd be real pissed off if I was Matt Pryor. I'd be even more pissed if I was, going out there and trying to be a quarterback behind them or even a running back behind them. They just weren't ready to play. You could see from watching the film and breaking it down that they just weren't ready. They didn't understand what it was to be in a game against a true NFL defensive end and defensive tackle. And they had some of the best in the business they faced yesterday. We're talking about 5 first-rounders. So putting them out there and thinking that you were going to be able to let them go by themselves and not protect them in that offense, it was a travesty. You can't do that, nor should anybody put their quarterback behind the offensive line like that.
Now, okay, a couple questions on that. One, why was Nate Herbig or Jack Driscoll ahead of Pryor? Was Pryor being disciplined? I mean, what's your read as to why Pryor, who started a playoff game and seemingly played pretty well, why was he passed over not once, not twice, but really 3 times? Because when Driscoll got hurt, they went to Jordan Mailata.
Well, I think it's more so. I can't guesstimate what it is, but I can't say this. I just heard what Doug said yesterday, and Doug said Herbig had a better practice than I guess what Matt had. And I mean, I can understand, trying to play a guy that he feels as though you want to reward him for out there working hard, but no, you don't do that with a $100 million quarterback behind that offensive line. No matter what he did, you got to have him in there. You got to cuss him out, beat him, whatever you got to do to get him motivated to go out there and play. You have to do that. He should have been in there regardless, of what happened, what transpired, or whatever. He should have been the guy that was in that game at the right guard position. He has the most experience. He's been in this system for 4 years. Why would you not put him in there? If he wasn't definitely hurt or on the edge of a cliff, not being able to walk, then you don't put him in there. But I saw him in there on PAT and field goal situations, so he could play. So I really don't understand it. I mean, somebody to kick him in the ass or something and tell him, hey, you got to play, son. You got to play, whether he wanted to or not.
All right, so this offensive line obviously had its struggles, but they were still out there for a 17-0 lead, and it looked like Carson was getting the ball out quick. He was going to Goddard. They had a lot of quick stuff. I mean, so wasn't there a recipe to continue to succeed even with that offensive line?
Absolutely. You're absolutely right. And I think it comes down, and this is just my honest assessment, this is me thinking when I was a player and the success that I had when I had the first 15. See, most teams, especially in the West Coast system in which the Eagles run, get a first 15. They have a first 15 plays, and they run those first 15 plays in the beginning of the game. It's like the game plan, in a nutshell for those first 15 games. See what works, see what doesn't work, and you continue to use the stuff that works. Well, we did that, and we had great success with those first 15 plays. Went down the first drive, scored. We're moving the ball at will in the first quarter. Then after that, I don't know what happened. Everything broke loose. I mean, the floodgates opened up. And when that happens, you got to go to a system. You just have to simplify it, especially with a rookie right tackle and a second-year offensive guard who didn't really play last year, period. So when you put them in a position where you're asking them to block, the best player in the draft last year, even though he went number 2, the best player in the draft, one-on-one, and you're a rookie too, Jake Driscoll, that's a recipe for disaster. Even having him go against, the guys that are behind the rookies. It was crazy the fact they had Ryan Kerrigan, and I'll call him the Eagle killer. Last year was the first year he didn't have a sack against the Eagles. Last year was the first year in his entire career that he didn't have a sack. I don't understand why they did it, put him one-on-one against this rookie. I just didn't understand the play selection. You got to protect guys like that. You got to slide the line their way, leave a chipper their way, create double teams wherever you can, run play action. You don't 7-step drop rookies, especially during the second half when you're trying to get a hold and stop the bleeding. You don't put them in a position where they're one-on-one against those type of players. Payne and Allen, first-rounders, Alabama, ballers. You got, Sweat. Sweat is the first rounder, ran a 4.40 at the combine. And you think you're going to have a rookie one-on-one against him? I mean, that's ludicrous to have that happen. So, I feel bad for the rookies. I also feel bad for Carson, most of all. He got his head kicked in yesterday.
That's interesting you bring up Carson, because I want to ask you, how many sacks do you think was his fault for maybe holding on to the ball too long?
Well, I looked at it, and, me and Dave Zangaro from NBC Sports Philadelphia, we sat back and we watched the sack, and I went through it, and I evaluated the play. And in looking at it, I saw 2 that were his sacks, 2 of them that were his. And he could have helped himself out a lot. But, there was certain situations, like there was a sack that he had where the rookie didn't put, he didn't block the right assignment. He left a guy wide open and free, straight to the quarterback, unaltered pass to Carson. You can't blame that on Carson. You also can't blame the fact that there was Jason Peters gave him a sack to a running back chipped the defensive lineman inside. He chipped the block off of him right there. It just so happens that Carson was right there. There was also a situation where there was actually Carson's where it was a screenplay to the tight end. And once the screenplay to the tight end got sniffed out by Kerrigan felt himself going to the quarterback too fast. He's a smart veteran type of player. He backed up, retraced his steps. So that meant the tight end who was going to get the screen was covered. He turned around, he covered it. At that point, you throw the ball away. You throw it away. Live to fight another day. But Carson wanted to try to, elongate the play, which made him get sacked that play. So that's his sack. There's times where in a protection sack where his guy was the guy that blitzed. We say it's the guy that, his guy. Of course, he's not going to block anybody, but he has to account for that guy because he's the free blitzer. And nobody can account for him because everybody else is blocking their guy. He's going to be the open he's going to be the free blitzer. He's running unimpeded to the quarterback, and that's what happened. Carson should have thrown the hot or got the ball out of his hands, whatever. That was his fault also. But other than that, he was just getting beat up, man, by that defensive line. They wanted it more in the second half than the right side did.
So what's the fix? I can't imagine us going back to this again. Is it going out and getting a veteran like Glenn, maybe having him play left tackle and move Jason Peters back to right guard and then Lane Johnson gets healthy? I don't know what the fix is, but I feel they have to do something.
Well, you can help guys. You can call plays more conducive to what they have, the personnel package you have out there. When Lane comes back, a lot of this will be alleviated. First of all, he comes back, he tells the right guard what to do, and boom, it'll be next. He'll be able to handle the right guard in that type of situation. It'll stop the bleeding. You'll know and be able to game plan where the weak link is, and you can send protection that way. So when he comes back, a lot of it will be alleviated. Also, when you get your starting running back, Miles Sanders, back, it'll put you in a better position. So now you have to respect the run. He's that good of a running back, and now a bell cow back in this system that you just can't rush the passer without stopping the run. And that's what happened yesterday. They couldn't run the ball. They didn't try to run the ball. So it really put them in a predicament that those defensive linemen pinned their ears back and rushed the passer. And in those situations, if you can't run the ball, it's just going one-on-one. It's like one-on-one in practice. You're going against, a guy that you're probably better than, and you're going to beat him, each and every time. So I think that's what happened. You have to make sure that you call plays. So you can run play-action plays. Play action to help them out because now the defense has to respect the fact that you can run the ball when Miles Sanders comes back. And in that protection, when you have play action, it sets a lot of double teams on the line of scrimmage. You're more aggressive and you set the double team on the line of scrimmage, which will alleviate those one-on-one blocks, but give you more time to throw the ball, but it also keeps the back end or a tight end in to help block. And those are the type of calls you have to call when you have an offensive line that's not ready to go out there and block one-on-one, especially in 5- and 7-step drops.
He's Barrett Brooks, and you could see him during Eagles pre- and post-game live on NBC Sports Philadelphia. You mentioned Miles Sanders, and then Boston Scott. The run-pass disparity was great again. Do you think that was because the running backs went out? Because you're an offensive lineman, and if you're a line that's struggling, don't you want to get into a rhythm by run blocking? And when you're up 17-0, why not get those guys just kind of run blocking and get them a little bit more confidence?
Well, I can't, guess again. I'm not going to guess again. I'm just going to go by what what the coach said. The coach said that he just wanted to keep his foot on the pedal, keep being aggressive, and score more points. And I understand that, but not with the personnel that you have in the game right now. You can be aggressive if you have personnel that can hold up against the pass. You didn't, so why not run the ball? Nate Herbig is not a pass blocker, but he can definitely move the crowd when it comes to running. He's one of those guys, he's going to uproot guys out of that off that defensive line and drive guys back. That's what he's more suited to do. And they didn't put him in a good position by not, run blocking. So, it was just, all right, I'm going to go out there and it's going to be, one-on-ones for the entirety of the second half. And you can't put him in that type of position.
Any positive that you took from yesterday?
Well, I saw that if they go out there and run an offense that suits their skill set, suits the personnel that they have out there, they can score whenever they want to. I mean, it was a lot of times last year they didn't score on the first drive, but hell, they scored the first drive to start the season off. And I got a lot of positives in that. Also got a lot of positives out of the defense. Even though they gave up 27 points, they were behind the buck in the second half for the entirety of the second half. I mean, look, you're asking them to go out there with short fields. I think I was talking to Ray. Ray said it was 6 times in the second half that the defense started with their backs in the enemy territory, man. You can't ask the defense. You got to give them a long field. If you gave that second-year quarterback a long field, he's going to make a mistake. But if you put him on your 40-yard line or your 30-yard line, it's going to be easy for that play selection. It's going to be easy for you to go out there and set the tempo because you only have 40 yards to score a touchdown.
Yeah.
So, they were behind the buck, and it's really hard for you to ask the Jim Schwartz defense to do that. Early in the game, they were playing great. I mean, you look at, we had our star cornerback on their star receiver, and for the better part of the game, he shut them down. That's all we wanted. The first half, I saw Eagles DBs on opponents' receivers. I didn't see that in a long time, probably about 3 years. And they went out there and performed. Give these guys an opportunity, number one, to keep their defensive line healthy with Barnett back into the lineup, true pass rushers, get guys in there that can really play. I think the defense will be even better. And that was a highlight I saw as far as from the DB situation that I hadn't seen in a long time. That was definitely a positive.
I agree. I thought Maddox played well. I thought for the most part the secondary played pretty well. I thought Jackson was disruptive. I thought Graham had a very good game until yes, and Graham played well until he ended up getting hurt. The Eagles finished yesterday 8 starters down, but injuries have consistently been a problem. And then the one question I guess before we roll here, Deshaun Jackson, he said he wasn't hurt. I'm wondering if he was maybe getting punished for the stuff that he said in the offseason because Doug has said, now he's speaking as we're speaking, but Doug did admit that he will play more in the future but didn't really elaborate why. But how's Deshaun Jackson only out there for 50% of the plays?
Well, he didn't look as explosive, yesterday either, But you really don't want to put him in a situation where he's going to hurt himself early and let his body get a little more battle-ridden a little bit more, get him game speed so he can be up to par when we really need him. Yesterday, when they did go to him, it was just in a bad situation where, you're asking the guy to go out there and run a full-speed route knowing that your offensive line can't block. It's almost like running for nothing. So, I mean, I'm not worried about D-Jack. He'll be all right. D-Jack will come back and he'll be the player we know he can be. When he's in the offense, we know we should be running. And that's it. That's the bottom line. Until we go back to what we do well, it's not going to be a good situation for this Eagles team.
Real quick, Doug Peterson said Nate Herbig graded out well at right guard, had some breakdowns, but they expect him to continue to be the starter.
And I think that's the worst thing you can put this guy in. I don't want to, bad. Like I said, I watched the film. He wasn't as aggressive as he needs to be, especially in the interior of that defense. If he's sitting right there, that defender's right there, you got to jump set him. You got to grab him. You got to reach out and touch him right there. I know for a fact that if you put Matt Pryor in there, he will do a lot better in those type of situations. He'll play a lot better than a Nate Herbig. So, that to me, that doesn't really make sense. And I'm not the coach, so I'm not going to, say anything, but it'll be a better situation if you have Matt Pryor in there. I don't know what he did, who he said what, or whatever he did. He needs to go back and apologize to whoever he said something bad to. Get back in there, because I know what he said. If I was Carson, I'd be really mad that Matt is not playing right now.
He's Barrett Brooks. Eagles, Rams next week. Eagles pre- and post-game live on NBC Sports Philadelphia. They do a great job. Barrett Brooks, of course, here, former Eagle offensive lineman, a Super Bowl champion with the Pittsburgh Steelers, and he, like all guests, appeared via the Boardwalk Honda hotline. It's always a pleasure to catch up with you, pal.
And you know what? I'm just thinking about Nate Hurts against Aaron Donald. I'm not going to sleep all week, man. But thanks a lot, guys. I appreciate it, man. I'll talk to you next week.